For centuries, we've heard these stories, right? People describing these incredibly profound moments, moments of connection, of spiritual insight, where they feel completely at one with the universe. We call them mystical experiences. But what are they, really? And can science, with its cold, hard data, actually study something so personal, so seemingly supernatural? Well, today, we're going to find out.
Just listen to this. This is a real quote from a volunteer in a scientific study at Johns Hopkins. It's intense, it's poetic, and it perfectly captures the kind of profound state we're going to investigate, not through philosophy or religion, but through the lens of controlled, empirical research.
Okay, so before we dive any deeper, let's make sure we're all on the same page. When scientists talk about a mystical experience, this is what they mean. At its absolute core is this powerful feeling of unity, this sense that the boundary between you and the rest of the universe just dissolves.
To really get our heads around this, we need to break it down. What are the common ingredients? What are the key features that make up this seemingly indescribable state of mind?
What's amazing is that these features aren't just random. A philosopher named Walter Stace studied accounts from all over the world, across different cultures and religions, and he found this common core. It didn't matter if it was a Christian saint or a Buddhist monk, the fundamental qualities of the experience were just remarkably similar. That really suggests this is a universal human thing.
So, that begs the question. If these experiences are so profound and maybe even universal, why haven't scientists been studying them all along? Well, it turns out there's a pretty big roadblock.
I mean, think about it. You can't exactly schedule a mystical experience for 2 o'clock on a Tuesday in the lab, right? For the longest time, their spontaneous nature made them almost impossible to study with any kind of scientific rigor. All scientists could do was collect stories after the fact, not actually study the experience as it was happening. But in the last few decades, that all changed. Scientists found a key that could reliably unlock these states of consciousness, allowing them to finally bring these experiences into a controlled laboratory setting.
And this was the absolute game changer. Psilocybin. In a safe, supportive, clinical setting, it turned out to be a tool that could predictably occasion experiences that were psychologically indistinguishable from those spontaneous mystical states. Suddenly, an unpredictable phenomenon became a testable hypothesis.
So, with this powerful new tool in hand, researchers at places like Johns Hopkins University could design seriously rigorous experiments, putting these experiences under the scientific microscope for the very first time.
And I really want to stress this point. This wasn't just about giving people a drug and seeing what happened. No, they used the highest standard of clinical research, the double-blind, placebo-controlled study. That means neither the participant nor the guide in the room knew what substance was being given. It's the best way to control for biases and expectations.
And here's the really clever part. They didn't just compare it to a sugar pill, they used an active placebo, in this case, Ritalin. Now, Ritalin is a psychoactive drug, so participants knew they got something. But the quality of the experience was totally different. This proved that the mystical type effects were specific to the psilocy.
So, what were the results? Well, they were staggering. In one of the landmark studies, a full 61% of participants who got a high dose of psilocybin reported having a complete mystical experience. This wasn't some fringe effect. It was happening to the majority of people.
And the data showed a really clear pattern. It wasn't random at all. The higher the dose of psilocybin, the greater the probability of having one of these complete mystical experiences. It was a clear, dose-dependent effect.
But here's the real kicker. These weren't just interesting drug effects that wore off after a few hours. They had a lasting, profound impact. More than a year later, 2/3 of the participants still ranked the experience among the most spiritually significant of their entire lives, on par with the birth of a child or the death of a parent.
This deep personal meaning, well, it naturally leads to a really fascinating question. If these experiences are so profound, could they also have therapeutic value? Could they actually help people heal? And this is where the research got even more incredible. They found a remarkable correlation. In clinical trials, it wasn't just the drug itself that predicted positive outcomes. It was the intensity of the mystical experience. The more profound and meaningful the experience, the better the therapeutic results.
And this powerful connection has been seen across studies for some of our toughest psychiatric challenges, helping long-time smokers finally quit, treating alcohol dependence, and dramatically reducing the crushing depression and anxiety in patients facing a terminal cancer diagnosis.
So what on earth is happening in the brain to allow for such a profound shift in consciousness? Well, neuroscientists believe it has everything to do with temporarily quieting down our inner narrator.
So this inner narrator is linked to a brain system called the default mode network, or DMN. You can think of it as the part of your brain that's constantly telling the story of you. It's fired up when your mind is wandering, when you're thinking about the past, worrying about the future, or just ruminating about yourself. Essentially, this network is the architect of our ego. It's what constructs and maintains our rigid sense of being an individual self that's separate from everything and everyone else. And when it becomes overactive, it's linked to things like depression and anxiety, where people get stuck in these negative loops of thinking about themselves. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. Brain scans show that psilocybin causes a rapid, dramatic decrease in the activity of this very network. And you know what else does the exact same thing, just through years of practice? Meditation. Experienced meditators also show a quieter default mode network. It's like two very different paths leading to the exact same neurological destination.
So you can see the direct link here between brain activity and our subjective experience. By turning down the volume on that inner narrator, the part of our brain constantly screaming me, 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 a totally different way of being can emerge. One that's characterized by that feeling of unity and interconnectedness that is the absolute heart of the mystical experience.
And that leaves us with a truly powerful idea to consider. What if that thing we think of as our fixed, unchangeable self is actually more like a process, one that's run by a specific brain network? And if that network can be quieted, allowing for these incredibly transformative and healing experiences, well, it opens up a whole new frontier for understanding the mind and treating its disorders, leaving us with a profound question: what does it truly mean to be a self?